So good afternoon, everybody. And maybe next half an hour or so, we are going to discuss about, what as an ecosystem we can do to further the cause of Indian hardware and, semiconductor ecosystem in India. So, I have, a glittering set of people here as panelists. It's pity that we have just half an hour. So by the time I take their names, the half an hour will be over. So, I would jump to the discussion directly. And gentlemen, maybe, once it goes to you, you can take 20 seconds to introduce yourself, okay? So, as I said, it's a humongous task to establish the semiconductor or hardware ecosystem in India. And a panel discussion like this, I hope can trigger some good thoughts in mind of people. And as I was telling my fellow panelists, if the needle moves by 2 nanometer also, it's worth it. So. So I'll start this. One of the key problems which entrepreneurs in hardware ecosystem have faced and continue to face, and that challenge is the challenge of funding. We have Gautam here from Fermionic, and he's somebody who has raised probably the highest quantity of venture funding ever raised in semiconductor industry. So Gautam, my question to you. What are the tips and tricks? How do we get there? So over to you, Gautam.
Okay. Thank you. It's not that I'm expert on this, and it's a very interesting question, very relevant as well. Thing is that, whatever I'm going to tell, it's going to be my opinion. Again, I'm not an expert. I have raised only once funding. I know that it's a bit of, maybe say from the Indian standards, it's slightly better, but I don't have a past record of raising money multiple times across multiple ventures. So thing is that take my perspective with a pinch of salt, but at the same time, since we have raised money recently, so it's a very fresh perspective, and then it's going to be very relevant for the ESDM system. So one thing certainly is that what I'll try to do is I'll attempt this question in 3 parts. The one thing is that what attracts the VCs. The second one is that once they get attracted or once you have wooed them, how you translate, how you convince them to put money. And then third is maybe what are the common mistakes, what you should avoid. I'll try to take less time so that maybe other panelists, they also get this thing. So to begin with, what attracts the VC community? Certainly one thing is that pretty much everyone will agree here is the funding or maybe understanding of the VCs about the semiconductor is a bit, I'll not call it's not complete, but it's still shaping up. The typical VCs will not have a very good appetite to invest in industries where the gestation periods are very long. So essentially then it starts with the killer tech. So in the sense that whatever the product you are building, the product should have a killer tech. And by killer, what I mean is that whether your product or idea, it has sufficient meat where it can go and then compete even the larger incumbents. And here we are talking about the large MNCs. Because when you are building a chip company, right, essentially you are going to compete with the best of the world. And then only your solution, once you have gone beyond the proto stage, it can go into the real systems, and then the money will come. So begin with a killer this thing tech. The other important thing becomes is that how big the TAM is, and that's the very important thing. In the sense is that if your part is going to be used, or maybe it's going to be useful only for those systems, which is just a handful. Most of the VC communities, they don't appreciate or they don't like it. At the same time, you also have to see that whether these products, are they going to be part of some growing and emerging markets? So in semiconductor, it's very common that you may have a chip which may be a part-to-part replacement, but at the end of the day, it will not do a lot. in order to make a real impact, right, your chip should have differentiated solution, but at the same time, it also has to address the emerging market and growing market. Again, there are just too many emerging markets. I'm not going to talk about it, but that's another thing, say, like certainly your product must address. The third one is that how far you are from the actual product idea. And this I can tell you from my experience that a working silicon at any day, it beats thousands of PowerPoints. The closer you are to the closer your solution or your idea, the closer it's for to the silicon, the actual prototype, right, the better it is. So this is the one, maybe say like aspect where how you attract. Now, once you have got the attraction, then how to convince them in the sense that like they come and then invest in you. So there it translates that whatever the product you have, it should have a very clear strategy. By strategy, what I mean is that like it should have a very clear revenue model. Whether your chip, whether you are going to be the supplier of chip or you are going to be maybe license this IP or a hybrid, but at the end of day, you should have a clear revenue model. And that clear revenue model translating into some kind of product market fit and then the business plan. Once you have these things ready, the job becomes easy. Again, it's not going to be, say, like, it's not that like this one wins VC attentions, but these are the basic things what VCs, they look for. Now, when VCs put their money, right, certainly, honestly, this I can tell you from my experience that I always ask this question myself that if I had this much of money, whether I would have invested. And if you can honestly and judiciously answer that, then you can think of half of your battle is done. Now, once that is done, right, in the sense that like you have to give a very clear revenue model, what kind of projections you have, when you are going to maybe say like scale. This is one. The other one is that the problem what most of the fabless companies will face at any point of time is that fabless is a very classical, very good model. It's asset light, agile, everything, but it has its own challenge in the sense that like if you build a chip in a fabless model, right, there are so many stakeholders in that, from foundry, packaging, test. And if you are building a chip in fabless model, your chip will see the light of the day only when all these, say like different steps, it has gone through it, right? Then only it goes to the customer hand, it makes some money for you. So one thing certainly, and this I have seen that the VCs, they always ask that like, okay, now we have built a chip, but how we are going to ensure that all these deliveries are going to happen on time so that the turnaround time, the one which goes to the end customer, that is kind of taken care. And essentially what they look for is that like what kind of strategic partnership you have developed with all your stakeholders. And that becomes very key in the sense that like this also gives maybe say like some kind of confidence to the VC community that like you are well ahead of the curve, and their appetite or maybe their confidence by allocating the risk capital, say like increases. That's the one. The other one is that like from the customer side, you have to answer that. So typically, most of the semiconductor engineers or professionals, they talk in terms of very golden parameter like PPA, power performance area. And now the TCO has started also coming to the picture, that total cost of ownership. What a company or a startup must do is that like how these technical terms, that translates into VC language, like how this translates into larger TAM, ROIs, maybe better TCOs, and in exit. So that's my overall view on this. And again, say like one thing is that like certainly I feel everyone agree here is that there is a bit of lack of money in India, so certainly funding, but good product ideas with a bit of perseverance, right? You'll win it. That's the thing I can tell you.
Thank you. Thanks, Gautam. I think apart from everything else which Gautam has told, I think add passion into it. The way he answered with lots of passion, probably that would have worked with VCs. So I'll probably go now to the other end of the podium. I'll come to you, Anku. So Anku is Anku. So Anku is, I knew him as managing director of media tech in India, but then I discovered that he's very rich and he himself is an investor. So Anku, my question to you is, right, you do organized investing in companies, right? So what is your view from the investor standpoint that hardware companies or semiconductor companies in India should do to attract attention from VCs?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm the head of MediaTek India, but as you said, I will talk more about the investing community. So I'm an angel investor, have invested in several startups, and I do hear a lot of pitches from founders every month, many of them. And what I see is that in our community, it's an angel investment community, not really the VC community. But I see that we end up investing most in the software startups, who are software, deep tech, AI, those kind of startups, because we feel that that's more scalable. It has is asset light because you need the idea which you can implement. So that is one thing which is kind of a trend. We look at that. And I've seen very few hardware startups getting funded. That's really the reality right now. And because the way it starts is, the question we ask normally is, what is the customer problem which you're solving? And I think in a chip design company or a hardware company, I think it starts with the technology which you are creating. But the visibility of customer is not very clear. And so that is one. So I think customer traction is really, really important. That, how will this, whatever you're making, will solve a customer problem. And that is, I think, is easier to visualize in a software company or a deep tech company. And but what I would say is, as an example, I am investor in a drones as a startup company, drones as a service company. So they are having they are solving a problem of how do you look at the constructions of a building, is it evolving, and how can drones help to look at the progress of the of the construction. So that is a customer problem which is being solved. Now, once you have this in your mind, now how can you maybe a ESGM company, how can you add value to make it more efficient? For example, we have battery efficiency issues, computing power issues, and connectivity and so on. So how can a chip be designed which can be special for this application? So that way, it's I think value will be created by the software or by the customers, and then you can add some value for the hardware design as well. So if one can approach it this way, I think I feel that the investment community will be more interested, because they can see whenever any investor invests in a company, he would think that it can become $1 billion idea, because most of the startups fail, right? So if some of them will succeed, and then that should be $1 billion idea, and which can actually cover up all the other losses. So any company which is invested in should be capable of becoming $1 billion company. Hopefully for me as well, right? And so for that to happen, I think the scale is very important, right? And that can come mostly from the value which is being created for the customer. So I think that is something which I feel could be a different take on it, because what I see is in India that hardware companies are mostly looking at the technology, the great chip which is doing great stuff. But then how do you? Gautam also mentioned about that. How do you that convert into a customer traction? I think if that happens, I think it'll take a big leap. But I think we can see that with the last few years, even the fab coming up here, the ecosystem is getting built up. So the interest in the VC community will increase from here on, I feel. Yeah.
Thank you. So thanks. I think these are good thoughts. So moving on, Sujeeth, my question to you. So Sujeeth, of course, is one of the finest silicon or product architects we have in country, very experienced, and his startup Ignitarium has built products both in silicon and system space. So moving the needle from, or the discussion from funding and VCs, what are the lacunas in our ecosystem, or which you have faced, missing pieces of our ecosystem, Sujeeth, while you develop these products grounds up, be it silicon or system products? So what is your take on the missing pieces of our ecosystem?
Yeah, a bit of a fancy terminology, but I'm just a tech grunt. So when you talk about hardware products, there are two categories. One is the system products, which is essentially a single board or a bunch of boards with an ID. This part of it, India has pretty much solved it. Over the last decade or so, we made tremendous progress. It is not a frightening prospect at all to get a product designed out of India and shipping in volume right out of India. The second category, that is the semi product, that's a bit of a different ballgame altogether. And this is in spite of the fact that we got a 30-year legacy of semiconductor design in India, vast talent pool, both in terms of quantity and quality, and all the mentors that are sitting out here, right? People who have walked the path before, either in their own startups or in semiconductor companies that they're currently part of. But in spite of this, the semi product has been not for the faint-hearted, if I may say so. And the reason for it is predominantly lack of easy access to risk capital, and more specifically, patient risk capital. Right? If I were to build a SaaS product, I can just string together 2 engineers and get it done 80% in 2 weekends. That unfortunately is not the case with a semi product. There are way too many moving pieces, and to get these moving pieces to mesh together, you need vast quantities of risk capital. This is the reason, unfortunately, why I can count the number of successful fabless semi companies out of India literally on the fingers of one hand, and at best charitably 1.5 hands, right? Not more than that. So for every Steradian or a Cyril or a Sankhya Labs that has made it, there are tens of others who have not made it for the single biggest reason that they have run out of patient risk capital as runway. So yeah, a long-winded answer. You kind of asked me to talk about non-capital, but the single biggest reason, in my opinion, still is not having access to patient risk capital at the scale that is required for a semi-product.
No, thank you. I think, as they say, money moves the world, right? So, I mean, a lot of issues which Indian hardware startups try to solve in frugal ways could anyway gets resolved if you have money. So I think that's the message you're trying to give, Sujeeth. So good. So one great news for our ecosystem recently has been the likes of Ola and L&T getting into fabless space, and I think it's pretty exciting, right? So coming to you, Sitanshu. What Ola is doing is definitely very exciting, and all of us are very proud of what you guys are set out to achieve. But if you compare the fabless schemes of government versus the schemes which are there for manufacturing part of the ecosystem, right? As Ola, who's investing hundreds of millions of dollars in this, if you were to say that, what is your expectation that how the governments, I mean, whether be it state governments or central government, can support to build this ecosystem where larger companies are getting attracted to enter into fabless? So what is your take on it?
Sure. Yeah, just for the audience, right, we are trying to build silicon multiple products, but the first one that we are setting out to do is AI accelerators that can compete with the likes of NVIDIA, right? So it is extremely lofty objective. It is the tip of the spear. And I must say that, in terms of the value that it could create, if we are successful, it'll be worth thousands of chips, right? So from a country perspective and for Krutrim, right, we are driven by the potential of this value creation for this country. We believe, and firmly so, that having this technology in-house is foundational, because this is where the world will try to stop us. Right, so with that, what we would need from the government and what we would hope, we need a lot of help, right? So I'll maybe say top 3 would be money. I think we just talked about that. Money is one of them, but not the only one, right? There is also supply chain and people. On the money side, I think when we look at DLI, PLI, currently it is not, they're very good schemes for startups, but they're not for the cutting edge development that requires hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. What would really help us is a demonstration of conviction and the backing of the government, right? When you have to raise multiple times over a long period, right? VCs and all are not going to be interested unless we have some skin in the game coming from the government. I think that's one area. We looked at DLI, for example, for 0.5 or less % of our total investment, I have to share all my IP details for people to review. Those schemes are not the right schemes for our usage. It has to be reimagined. They are certainly right for smaller startups that can immediately get bootstrapped by it. That's on the money. So on the supply chain side, while it's a very impressive discussions in the last couple of days, right, about what we are trying to do here in Gujarat and overall in India. Unfortunately, I can't use those fabs today. I can't use those packaging services today. It will take time for them to come up. We can't wait. So we are working with finding partners of all sorts, because it's not a small objective. And as we are going and finding those options, those are expensive international providers. And we need some help in terms of government to kind of help facilitate and kind of streamline that supply chain aspect, where, for example, tools, IPs, foundry, right? The relationships are very important. Just in certain cases, when people are building products for NVIDIA, they don't have time to talk to us, right? So having that kind of facilitation, just yesterday I read that Malaysia, for example, signed a contract with ARM to spend $250 million and get those IPs for their startup ecosystem, right? It's an initiative. I mean, they'll also train 10,000 engineers. I mean, we have to think big when we look at supply chain, right? How do we, instead of doing the linear and wait for this ecosystem to evolve organically, what can we do non-linearly? And finally, people. I mean, for what we are trying to do, I will be the first person to say, I cannot do it alone. My team cannot do it alone. We need the best people in this country. They are there in different companies, right? But if this agenda is big enough, important enough, then we need some help finding ways to get those people to work together on this objective, instead of having this being done in silos in different companies. Also, I think we should find ways to do it well, do it in one place, and make it work. And if we do, I promise you, that will be worth thousands of chips.
Thank you. And I think the keyword here, which I caught, is to think big and in a non-linear fashion. So yeah, that's good to hear. So from there, Nitin, I would move to you. You have been someone who's around in this ecosystem as a startup. You have done IPs, you have done services, and landscape has been standstill until very recently, right? Now, how do you see a company like Ola and coming in the system and saying we're going to spend $180 million, or a company like L&T coming and saying we're going to spend $200 million? So for someone like you has seen this evolving. What is your take? What are goods and bads of large Indian companies making a literal entry in fabless space? So what is your take on that?
So hello everyone. So in this regard, I think it's really encouraging to see these large Indian domestic companies coming up and picking the ball and being ready to do chips from India. It's really encouraging. From perspective of startups, how that helps. So definitely, like Sutanshu mentioned, that it will help to pave the way of the local ecosystem of the supply chain. It really helps the smaller startups with that, right? And I think the other aspect is that we also need what Sutanshu also mentioned. We also need to create some kind of a model in which the NVIDIAs of the world can mentor these and probably the other startups. That is something which we can help to create a better ecosystem, right? And in addition to that, then other than that, there are challenges of the startup, like what everyone is mentioning. The startups are sometimes having challenges of funding. There are some ease of business related challenges, which probably may not get sorted even with the bigger companies, right? And coming back to like the topic being discussed mostly, I think I feel from a semiconductor perspective, the biggest asset and the biggest challenge is the team. So the design cycle, the time for a semiconductor chip startup to get funding and then to have an exit is really large compared to software, right? So the goal here is that you are able to retain the team well motivated and take them through the whole cycle. Then only you can have a success story. If like what my friend Sujeeth was mentioning, that if something goes wrong in between and your team leaves, or like there's so many beautiful offers coming from all these MNCs, if somebody moves out or a bunch of people moved out, your company is anyways gone, right? So I think that the team is the most important thing, I think, here. That's my take. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Over to you.
Thank you. So now coming to Bharat, and I would call Bharat part of brotherhood, because he heads a services company. I also came from that fraternity. Bharat, the way our industry is evolving. We had this GCC ecosystem which has been there from very long time, and the services industry has served it well. We sold a lot of PD and DV engineers, skill-based selling. But then now that someone like Ola doing the entire product stack defined here, right? It means that the people in services fraternity too must evolve, right? So how do you see, what is your observation and take on what kind of challenges and opportunities it presents for the domestic services industry, because it is very important piece to complete the ecosystem. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with every one of points here, but like I have points to every one of them here as well. When coming to the investment side, I think Gautam and I think so they have given their real views, but definitely like the entrepreneurship in India really need to be educated as well, because I've been seeing a lot of startups like using the DLI schemes, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs, as they said, right? Like these are all like engineers. Okay, these are all not businessmen. So these engineers needs to be educated how to pitch, and they need to understand actually investor looks for ROI. No one gives for free of cost, right? And what I'm seeing from a lot of companies when I've been talking to them and entrepreneurs, right? All of us are only looking at making a chip itself is a big thing. It's not that. It's just a piece of a puzzle. It's like selling those chips, right? Because there are a lot of companies actually like who have done their MPWs and who have actually like their chips working, but they're not able to sell, right? So definitely actually these people needs a lot of what do you say, like hand-holding and guidance from the investors, and definitely like there are a lot of brilliant engineering here, right? For example, like in India, actually, like I think all the veterans here, I think they would have seen many chips. I don't think like anyone else in part of the world would have seen like a lot of chips. But only thing is like we've been more of into execution side. But definitely we want all of these people really like needs to come and become as an entrepreneurs to do something different. And coming to the other perspective, like as Nitin and I think the Ignitarium gentleman was talking of like the stability, right? Why actually like if we are going out, right, the credibility really matters a lot. So outside people across the globe are asking like, okay, will the engineers at this generation or your people are going to be stable in your organization for at least one chip to complete? Definitely all you guys are right. Like this generation actually needs to be taught to be stable. I think like in your generation, I think you would have taken your gratuity and PFs. I don't see now anyone taking it, right? This is a reality basically. This is a reality. Okay, and definitely services need to be evolved. And as Sitanshu has been saying, right, like in TSMC or any other foundries, when they've been dealing with NVIDIAs, Apples and all, they don't care about the startups. That's where actually the value chain aggregator system is there, which we recently started being part of, where we will be responsible like IMAX of the world or Alchips of the world. I'm not even sure like in India why till date actually companies haven't gone into that mode of being part of the fab services. But definitely like as all of you said, right, for services definitely like many people ask us what is the differentiator. Everyone comes and says we have the best people in the world. But what is the differentiator? At least we've been trying or experimenting ourselves to get into the fab side, so definitely we can help the startups or the ecosystem. And even in this, when we've been going into the foundry services, we don't find people in India. We've been hiring actually the foundry managers from across the globe in Taiwan, Singapore, and US. Because that expertise actually is pretty rare here. But definitely like, as all of you have said, the entrepreneurs needs to be evolved. And I think definitely like many people here who are veterans should really come together and really make this dream of India to happen.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Bharat. So this is, again, quite passionate. I think you have, looks like you have many things to say. And, all of us would definitely like to give one more round of go, but unfortunately we are out of time. One key thing here is that whether my question carried the, the funding part or not, everybody said it is important. This is, cutting across the big and the small. Everybody said that the money part is important. The people part is also very, very important. And, in the end, I think the pieces of ecosystem, coming together and working in sync. So these are the key things, I think, which came out of this discussion. And, would have loved to take some question, but I think we are out of time. So thank you very much, gentlemen here. And, thanks for all of you to, listen to us. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and you can step forward for a group photograph. And I now welcome Dr. Manoj Kumar, EC member, IESA, to kindly present the mementos to all the gentlemen out there.
start with me?
Yes, start with you.
Thank you.
The investor.
Thank you.
Thanks to you. Very good selection of the people.